Welcome back to another GM's Corner. I'm Alex.
I'm Tim.
I'm Scott.
I'm Daniel.
And in this episode, we'll be taking another question that we've had asked from our tome of topics. Feel free to add your own, and we'll actually discuss them as well. So this week, we'll be discussing should GMs allow players to decide which DMG optional rules to use in a campaign? So these are the rules like brutal,
Gritty healing,
encumbrance,
which I guess technically isn't a DMG rule. It's in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
But it is an optional rule. Feats are technically an optional rule.
Yeah. Flanking is technically an optional rule.
Yep.
And insanity and
honor. Yep. And then of course there's your own homebrew rules that you have. There's stuff from DM's Guild or the Tal'Dorei source book or any other third-party stuff that's may have been developed specifically for that thing, but is adaptable to other things. I am a fan of doing that.
Letting the players decide.
Yeah. Because largely, well, it serves two functions. One, everyone knows up front what set of rules you're operating by.
Yeah, which is especially important if you're playing with a group of random people, like at a local game store or something like that, where each person might be used to a different set of normalized, we always play with these rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, this can only happen when you are starting the campaign.
Yes.
Once you're in it, you can't switch them. Switch them out or switch them in.
Or you have to do so with gentleness.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people to feel like you're changing the rules on them.
No, that's not good.
Say, for instance, you haven't been using encumbrance, and you are 6 to 8 sessions in, maybe more, and you say, you know what, we're going to use encumbrance now, guys. How much are you carrying right now? And everyone starts looking at their character sheet, and they start having to do all the math that they didn't do before because you were using carrying capacity, and most of them have strengths over 10, so you can basically carry whatever you need. And now they start adding stuff up. It's like, oh, don't forget your coins. How much coin are you carrying? Like, oh, shit. So they're doing that math. And then suddenly they're all encumbered lightly or heavily.
Yeah.
There's a fair chance heavily because...
Especially for the wizard and sorcerer.
Yeah. So now you've forced them into a situation where if they want to keep moving 30 feet a turn...
They're going to have to leave a bunch of stuff behind.
Yeah, that they were planning on sort of having for this adventure.
Right. And that also leads to the situation. Now it's like, well, now all of a sudden we're having to balance being prepared versus being fully capable.
Yeah, well, and that's the fun of the encumbrance rule, but to
if
do
you
it
know about
after...
it ahead of time.
Yes.
Because it might be somebody who's like, really dead set against it. They're like, well, if we're going to play with that, I have to make a character that has a high strength.
Yeah.
Or, like, I'd use strength as my dump stat because it wasn't mattering in this game.
Yeah.
Well, now that it matters, ugh.
Yeah.
Now I get to spend my ASI.
Yeah, and that's a really brutal tax to put on somebody. Is one of their, what is it, like 5 you get by level 20?
Yeah.
Got to use one of those just to throw 2 into strength that you'll never use other than to carry stuff.
Yeah. The only other one that might be worse than that is tacking the gritty healing on afterwards.
Yeah.
No
one has a healer's kit? I guess no one heals.
I guess you only heal at a long rest then. Yeah. And for that reason, it's like, you what?
Yeah.
So if you are going to change that rule, make sure that they get at least one healer's kit.
Well, make sure you do it in between, at the end of a session. Hey, starting here, we're going to do this. and we're taking downtime, so you have a few months to gather the stuff you need, to store the stuff you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to break it.
When they're in town.
If you have to change the rules.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should, you shouldn't. I'm a big fan of letting the players vote if the players really don't like something. Although I am also a fan of the DM having a veto right.
Yeah.
I really, I mean, most of us in our group enjoy the gritty healing for the realism, but I think, if the DM really didn't want to do that, because I know I'm going to throw you guys up against some big stuff, for this story, or your newer
Or you
players,
But it really comes down to just sit down and have a conversation. You're all adults,
But, yeah.
potentially.
But by veto right, I mean DM in that session 0 or session 1 at the very beginning say, these are the optional rules I'm okay with. Which ones do you guys want? Don't even give them the opportunity to vote and then shoot them down on the ones that you absolutely do not want to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Or alternatively say, I'm running a horror game. We are going to use this rule for sanity loss. That's a definite one. The other ones are optional.
Yeah. This is what we're using. This is what you have the option of. This is off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not all of your rules are going to be potentially mechanical either.
Yeah.
Like I'm playing with poker chips right now, where I reward the players with the poker chip if they do something, and they get a different color based on what they do. And they can save them to influence the story, or they can trade them in for XP to either get to the next level, or if they are patient and wait till they get the next level, they can trade them in for an early XP boost. Because it's based upon the easy XP value for you at the level that you're at when you trade them in.
Yeah. So if you wait till that level up, they're automatically worth that much more experience.
Yeah.
And I've used them for both. I've cashed them in for experience, and I've modified the story with them, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the other one, go ahead and talk about the when you were starting the game, you said here are the optional rules, and for every one that they choose of this type, you get certain chips.
Well, yeah.
Well, that was for world building.
But still,
Yeah.
that's an interesting
you
mechanic.
covered in an article.
We've covered
you
it.
did talk about
We did cover that world building bit. So you can go find that. But that world building thing is what led to the XP for chips.
Yeah.
Because we'd already done it, and most of the things they can use the chips for are what they used it for world building in. So if they get a white chip for role play, so they can spend that to say, if the player says, I want a bag of holding, I want to look for one, they can spend the chip to have the magic item people have a bag of holding. It's there. Do they have the money? Do they want something other than money? That's up to me. But they can say, hey, this is here. Or they need information. They can spend a blue chip to say it's going to be at this library, or there's someone in town that we can get this information from. Now, I don't recommend this if you're the kind of GM that has to have everything prepped and in notebooks.
Yeah.
This will ruin your day.
Yeah.
But the only person that has this information is in this place.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah, so I am not that kind of GM, so this is fun for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And as a player, it helps give us a sense of ownership in the world, and a sense of what I'm doing matters.
Yeah.
Because it can be very frustrating when only this one person knows, but we're somewhere else and have no way of finding out that person knows.
Yeah.
Well, you should have talked to this person. He would have let you know that this person has a quest that you can go on that can take you to this place. That'll give you a clue that tells you that there's a hidden room in this place that has a person imprisoned behind it who has the information you're looking for.
Oh. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, am I playing Dark Souls?
or some of the quests in original Morrowind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't run many quest chains that way.
Yeah, and there's
Mostly because there's too much that can go wrong
in art.
in the midst
The
of
only
that.
time I've seen those happen in RPGs is when the DM is primarily a video game player,
Yeah.
and he's taking things straight from the video game that he liked and putting them into the role-playing game.
I've seen that go bad a lot.
Yeah.
The other type of GM that does that is the one who likes the story on rails but doesn't want the players to feel like they're being railroaded. Because if you give them the dots, it's not so much a railroad as they're just connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, really, realistically, if you're running that situation, you should have the situation. Well, they missed this key opportunity to get the clue they needed. Well, guess what? That clue is going to show up again and again and again until they finally get the clue this time.
Yeah.
And if they choose to go against it, well, that's fine. But
Right.
then they're not on railroads anymore. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what other optional
Rules there were.
Yeah, well, the Tal'Dorei
The
resurrection rules.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one that you should probably have a plan for before the first player dies. Whether or not you're going to use it.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Well,
you can actually...
Well, again, we're going on the assumption that you talk and everyone has a say, or the GM just says, here's the list of rules we're using. And we're using that in our Monday night game, or Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
And Monday, because you guys voted on that too. But so far, all of the PC deaths that we've had, they were out in the wilderness and away from everything, so they couldn't get back in time. Or the player was like, I don't want to play that character anymore, so I'll just make a new one.
Well, the one time we did use the resurrection rules.
She came back.
Yeah, but...
By luck.
Well, the way I figure it, because it starts at a 10, and I'm pretty sure 2 people failed.
Yeah.
And 1 person succeeded, so 12 minus 3 is 9. So you had to roll a 9 or better on the die for me to come back.
Yeah.
And it was my character. And I would have had to say, yeah, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Because even that, it's basically the resurrection rules, because it says, and the player wants to come back.
Yeah.
So basically it's a die roll, ends up being a skill challenge, and a final die roll to see if you get to make the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that one cut it close, because not only was there, luckily it was the first death.
Yeah.
2 failures, 1 success, which technically shouldn't have been a success.
Hold a nat 20!
Tim's character
Has a
used
negative-
a charisma-based skill that he's not trained in with a -3 charisma modifier. And he was the one that succeeded.
Yeah.
So theoretically, it should not have, it should have been a 13 DC for me to, which is still, not impossible.
Which I think is actually what I rolled, just to let you behind the screen.
You roll exactly the right number.
But the other side is the spell that was used required the person to have died within 10 days, and we were like on day 8 or 9 when we finally got back.
7, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were cutting it close.
Yeah.
To that.
And we were risking that the people that we brought her to had the resurrection spell.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know.
Because we didn't have time to get to the place we knew.
Yeah,
And
the place we knew.
We also had good die rolls avoiding the obstacles and the combatants on the way there. So it could have very easily...
Yeah.
been different.
It was so likely that things were going to go different, I actually created another character.
Just in case.
Yep.
Just because I was like, statistically, this character isn't going to make it.
So that brings up another potential rule. How do you create characters?
Yeah.
It's one that almost no discussion happens about. And
Yeah, typically, whoever just defaults to how they made the character.
yeah, and I think thus far I've been lucky lately. When I get new players or we start a new game or whatever, everyone's either keen or doesn't seem to mind doing everything randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Random race, random class, random background.
Yeah, and I'm
Well,
actually working with.
You've never done random class. Well, I've never done random class
Yeah,
with you guys. You guys had one where there was.
Yeah.
But I've become
Race attributes.
really keen on it. I like roll the stats in order, roll a random race, roll a random background.
Yeah.
And just because it helps me flex my role playing muscles,
Yeah.
my improv muscles, because let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see what kind of character, rather than I want to play this. Have this. It helps get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if you are going to do random class, don't make them roll the stats in order.
Yeah. Because that's going to also be another futility moment where they're just like, I'm going to throw this character at every dragon we find because I don't
have
want to
a
play it.
6 strength and 8 constitution. I'm a barbarian.
Yep.
Fan-frickin-tastic.
Yeah.
I'm a monster. Roar! Yep.
Exactly. So,
And I'm a no.
but in that game, when I had them rolling random race, class, and background, I only made them take 2 of those. Also, because, one, it was my first experience doing this. 2, especially when you're rolling class, and you're doing it with randos on the internet, where maybe they've only ever played one class, and they have no interest. Not just they've never done it, but they have 0 interest in playing a different class.
Yeah.
They like the idea of a sorcerer. They played one. They love it. And that's all they want to play. When they come to the table, they only want to play a sorcerer. Okay, you won't let them play this character that they have. They've played at every single table. But okay, fine. You want me to make a new one? Fine. I'll make one, but he's going to be a sorcerer because that's the only thing I want to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to make allowances for that, for the randos on the internet. But by and large, everybody, to my surprise, almost every single one of them kept all the rolls. One guy, after he lost his first character, he asked if he could play an artificer. And I was like, yeah, sure. So he didn't roll on the class table because he was going to
Play an artificer.
Yeah, he would have disregarded whatever he rolled because artificer wasn't on my table.
Okay.
So, and I'm actually working with the guys here at Second Star to develop my deck. Because right now I have a table that everyone's basically rolling on, and there's some weighted distribution in the numbers of that table. But this whole thing has started, and I'm like, what I want is a deck so that you, the player, or you, the GM, will build your deck based upon the demographics of your area. And if you have a 50-card deck, that means each card is worth 2 percentage points of the population. So if humans are 25 or 20% of the population, you're going to have 10 human cards in the deck. Tieflings are 6%, 3 tiefling cards. So you basically make this deck, shuffle it, and have the players draw from that deck. And you can change it based upon wherever you are in the world. So if you're playing these characters, one dies, player needs a new character. What's the demographics of the area? Remake the deck, draw the new deck. He draws a new character. So, Yeah.
I mean, I like how we've done it in the games I've played with you, where it's random, and then you choose your class.
Yeah.
What I like about that is because I like, okay, these are my stats. This is my background. This is what job I got, my first job, and your personality traits, and then thinking, okay, what would this person go to? And I mean, it gives me some ownership of the character.
Yeah.
And also allows me to help build the story of the character.
Yeah.
So I would suggest at least one of the things let them have the agency over.
Yeah. Well, that's why in the current system I don't do the random class.
Right.
Class is the big one.
Yeah.
Plus, it prevents the 6 strength 8 con barbarian.
Right. Okay. Well, there's that. Tell us what you think.
If you have any other optional rules that you can think of that we didn't cover, comment those.
We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Okay.